In this series of video programmes, we take you, the viewer, on a visit to one part of the UK for a closer look at those railways and museums. If we consider this map split up into 9 different parts, it simplifies matters for area grouping. In this, the first part of the Railways Restored series, our cameras visit Wales, birthplace of the restoration movement. We shall be visiting several very different railways in this area, from standard gauge to miniature. Our first stop is at Llangollen, situated on the A5 between Wrexham and Corwin. There's been a railway in Llangollen since 1862, and the 4 miles of line between the town and Deeside Holt are all that remains of a railway that once ran to Barmouth on the Cambrian coast. Llangollen is a busy market town situated on the River Dee. The railway station stands on the northern bank of the river. In the yard outside the engine sheds, the locomotives are being prepared for their day's work. Foxcote Manor, number 7822, a Great Western Railway's 460 Manor class locomotive, will be providing the motive power for the first train of the day. Elsewhere in the yard, Burton Wood Brewer, an 060 saddle tank locomotive built by Kitson, simmers in the early morning light. Fully prepared for its day's work, number 7822 departs the yard and heads for the station. Collected its coaches from the overnight stabling point, Foxcote Manor runs round the train, ready for departure. The platform is already bustling with visitors, the small shops and stalls doing good trade. Station, the line follows closely the course of the River Dee, famous for salmon fishing and canoe sports, before beginning the climb up to Berwyn, the first station from Llangollen and some 2 miles distant. At Berwyn, the attractive black and white timbered station building is situated on a rocky ledge, affording a good view of the river and the well-known Chain Bridge. The train we see arriving at Berwyn is the Sunday lunch special, known as the Berwyn Bell. Departure from the station is on a steep incline, Foxcote Manor having to use all its power to gain momentum on the slope. Incline curves around through the forest, leading eventually to the 689-yard-long Berwyn Tunnel, believed to be one of the longest single-bore tunnels in preservation. The beautiful scenery of the Dee Valley rises on either side of the line. Emerging from the tunnel, the line again curves above the River Dee. All trains presently terminate at Deeside Halt. As the locomotive pulls forward to perform its run-round manoeuvre, we can see the remains of the track bed stretching off into the distance, which the Preservation Society hope to reopen, allowing the trains to run once again through to Corwin. Meanwhile, back at Llangollen Station, number 5459 arrives with its slate of coaches ready for the day's work. Every Sunday, from Easter to the end of September, the railway operates 2 trains. As number 5459 prepares for departure, Foxcote Manor is arriving at Berwyn Station on its return trip to Llangollen. 5459 finally gets the all clear and departs Llangollen station amidst clouds of smoke and steam. Foxcote Manor, having descended the incline from Berwyn, swings over the Dee Bridge and approaches the passing loop on the outskirts of Llangollen station. Passing manoeuvre completed, number 5459 is cleared to make its ascent towards Berwyn. It's at this point that we must leave the Llangollen Railway and travel southwest into the Snowdonia National Park to the small town of Llanberis, situated between Betws and Carnarvon. The highest mountain in Wales, Snowdon, dominates the skyline in this area. The 1-foot 11.5-inch gauge Llanberis Lake Railway runs for 2 miles along the side of the lake opposite the town. The railway starts at the historic Dinorwic Quarry Workshops, now part of the National Museum of Wales. Elladier, an 040 saddle tank locomotive built by Hunslet in 1889 and resplendent in bright red livery, makes its way through the car parking area which separates the locomotive sheds from the main station. The locomotive was delivered new to the Dinorwic quarries in 1889, where it worked until 1957. It stood rusting in a semi-dismantled state for 12 years until it was purchased by the Lake Railway. It took over a year to restore the locomotive to full working order. Many of the parts were completely worn out and had to be renewed. Departing the station amidst clouds of steam, Snowdon rising in the background, the train runs down the yard between ever-heightening slate waste tips. Almost immediately, the trains are running alongside the lake. The railway, as we see it today, runs on the original track bed of the 4-foot gauge Pedaran Railway. along which steam locomotives once hauled both slate and passenger trains for the quarrymen to Port de Norwich. The Llangollen Railway was closed in October 1961. The rails were removed and the locomotives were broken up for scrap. 9 years of disuse saw the track bed disappear beneath a dense growth of trees, gorse and heather. All this had to be removed before construction on the new Lake Railway could begin. Rails and locomotives from the bankrupt quarry were used to build the new line, which was eventually opened in July 1971. The end of the line for the Lake Railway is here at Penllyn, where the diminutive locomotive is decoupled from the front of the train and runs round in preparation for the return journey. From a narrow-gauge steam railway, we now move to the coastal town of Llandudno and a mountain-climbing tramway. The town has been a holiday resort for many years and boasts the highest landmass jutting out to sea that can be found around the British coastline, the Great Orme. The views from the summit of this 650-foot-high mass of rock attracted so many visitors to the area that it was decided in 1902 to construct a tramway to the summit. Today, still in its original form, the Great Orme Tramway climbs the steep, narrow streets at a maximum speed of 5 miles per hour. The journey to the summit, however, is made in 2 stages. Each section of the line is a separate 3-foot 6-inch gauge funicular with a fixed winding motor and counterpoised cars, the weight of the descending car helping to pull its partner up the hill. The lower section is a paved tramway laid alongside a steep and winding street where a tram can possibly meet other vehicles and must be able to stop. This section is 872 yards in length with a vertical rise of 400 feet at an average gradient of 1 in 6, although the steepest part is in fact 1 in 4. The cable is concealed within a 14-inch deep conduit slot. Each car is fitted with an emergency braking system, which is activated by an increase in the tram's speed above 6.5 miles per hour. The overhead cable was originally used as a telecommunications device, whereby the 2 tram cars could talk to each other and to the winding house. Modern times have seen this replaced by a sophisticated radio system. At the halfway station, we can see the winding gear in action on the heavy cable. On the lower section of the tramway, there are 2 independent half-mile-long steel cables in use. Each cable is 1 5/16" diameter with a braking strength of 60 tons, 12 times the maximum possible load. As number 5 begins the descent, it's assisting the winding mechanism in pulling number 4 up the steep section near the bottom. Affords marvellous views of the Bay of Llandudno with its long sweep of hotels. As number 4 continues its ascent, we can see the driver communicating by radio with his colleagues, informing them that he's about to enter the passing loop. Safely completed, number 4 continues its journey towards the halfway station. During the summer of 1990, when our cameras visited the Great Orme Tramway, the upper section was closed for essential track maintenance work. Passengers from the tramway were transferred to buses, which conveyed them over the final section of the journey. New track was being laid and cable pulleys refurbished along the entire upper section. The work was due to be completed before the end of the summer. On the A494 Corwin to Dolgethlau road stands the town of Bala. Amongst the high mountains of northeast Meirionydd, the waters of the Dee have spread, filling the steep-sided valley and creating the largest natural lake in Wales. Trains first came to this tranquil part of the land back in 1868, when a cross-country railway was opened to link the industrial borderlands with the Cambrian coastal resorts around Barmouth. Forging their way up the Dee Valley, the trains skirted the waters of Bala Lake before climbing over the high passes and down the valley to Dolgethlau. This railway was mainline standard gauge, and passenger services through Bala ceased on the 15th of January 1965, when the line from Llangollen to Barmouth was closed. In 1971, a local engineer realized the potential of the lakeside section for both local and tourist traffic. From this thought, the narrow-gauge Bala Lake Railway was born. The line begins at the southern end of the lake and runs for 3.5 miles to its present terminus at Llangollen, within half a mile of Bala's town centre. The original line was to standard gauge. However, the new tourist line has been built to the 1 foot 11 5/8 inches gauge. The line was first opened to passengers in August 1972, although it took a further 4 years to complete track laying to Bont. Since 1976, the railway has built up a fleet of 5 steam locomotives. Prepared for service today is number 5 Maid Marian, built by Hunslet in 1903. The locomotive spent much of its life on the Norwich village branch, some 1,100 feet above sea level. Withdrawn in 1964, Maid Marian was purchased by a group of enthusiasts who formed the Maid Marian Locomotive Fund. Having spent 4 years working on the Llanberis Lake Railway, Maid Marian was finally transferred to Bala in 1975 and has been in regular service ever since. The railway runs close to the lake, all the way to the Bala station at Bont. The company hopes one day to run the line closer to the town of Bala. Having run round its train, Maid Marian prepares for the return journey, the round trip of 9 miles taking approximately 1 hour. narrow gauge to miniature railway now, as we visit the Conway Valley Railway Museum. Situated in Betws at the junction of the A470 and the A5 roads, the Conway Valley Railway Museum presents some well-displayed attractions, plus a 1¼ mile, 7¼ inch gauge, steam-hauled miniature railway. Steam locomotives which run on an amazingly sophisticated 7¼ inch track. The line runs around a 4½ acre site and has the capacity to operate 3 trains at any one time, using a colour light signal and token system. The train can carry 20 to 30 passengers. These beautifully made steam locomotives are wonderful to watch in action. As well as the miniature railway, there's also a well-stocked book, model and gift shop in the museum foyer. Refreshment can also be taken in the buffet car. South of Betws on the coast stands Porthmadog, home to 2 narrow gauge railways. The first we shall be visiting is the Welsh Highland Railway, situated to the western end of the town. born in 1923 as the result of a union between two much older systems. The Welsh Highland Railway thus became the longest narrow-gauge railway in Wales at 22 miles, running from Dinas to Porthmadog. The railway ran through some of the most spectacular scenery that Snowdonia has to offer, including the dramatic pass at Aberglaslyn. Sadly, the line closed in 1937, the stock was sold, and by 1941 the rails had been lifted. That would have been an end to the matter, but for a quirk of fate and that particular breed of person, the railway enthusiast. In 1961, a group formed a society dedicated to the memory of the Welsh Highland Railway. But, true to form in 1964, this evolved into a company intent not only on remembrance, but on revival. The company faced a daunting prospect. The line had been closed for 40 years. The track bed was in the hands of the official receiver. There were no rails, no stock, no locomotives, and no money. By 1976, the company had raised enough money to purchase from British Rail the old slate exchange siding, known as Bethgelert sidings. This was to provide a centre from which the railway hoped to progress along the old track bed. Track was relaid, locomotives purchased, coaches constructed, and at last in 1980, the Welsh Highland Railway was back in business, running as it does today on a modest 3/4 of a mile of track. The Welsh Highland Railway is a company which looks very much to the future. Today, it offers passengers the feel of the old Welsh Highland and a tantalising glimpse of future possibilities. town stands the 13.5-mile-long Ffestiniog Railway. The station in Porthmadog stands next to the beautiful harbour. The Ffestiniog Railway today is a fully operational company which runs regular daily services between Porthmadog and Ffestiniog. The railway operates a variety of locomotives over this line, which is to the 1-foot, 11.5-inch gauge. At Porthmadog Station, on a bright summer's morning, is Linda, a 240 saddle tank and tender locomotive built by Hunslet in 1893. The Ffestiniog Railway Company was formed on the 23rd of May 1832, originally to bring slate from quarries some 13 miles away. Sadly, the decline of the slate industry saw the closure of the railway on the 1st of August 1946. It was not until the 23rd of May 1982 that the first passenger train ran once again to Ffestiniog. The first major station on the line out of Porthmadog is Minffordd. Arriving at the station is Mountaineer, a 262 tank engine that was built by the American Locomotive Company at Paterson, New Jersey in 1917. The locomotive was donated to the Ffestiniog Railway in 1967. Since then, it's been modified to meet the Ffestiniog loading gauge and converted to oil burning. The railway soon begins to climb, the line twisting through the forest towards the station at Tannabul. Climbing high above the valley, the train approaches one of the technical marvels of the railway. At Theacht, the engineers who were reconstructing the line faced a major problem. Part of the original track bed had been flooded when a power station was constructed at Tanigrishiau. To overcome this problem, a new line had to be constructed in an open spiral to gain the height necessary to climb around the reservoir. This open spiral is unique in Britain and can be seen to its best if we watch Double Fairley Merthyr Emrys on its descent to Porthmadog. Emerging from behind the small hill, the train completes its 360-degree turn to run into the small station. The Ffestiniog Railway's most famous locomotives are known as the Double Fairleys. Earl of Meirionnydd, seen here in action through Summit Cutting, was built by the present company in 1979. The main attraction of the railway must surely be the beautiful countryside through which it passes. In Ffestiniog Station, Mountaineer is taking water before running round its train and departing once more to Porthmadog. This is where our first visit to the restored railways of Wales must end. There are so many restored railways in this area that it'll require a further 2 programmes to cover them properly.